Welcome everyone to another edition of HogvilleNET Hoops. This is a special edition, a joyous occasion, smiles on my face. Sam Lance, you're smiling. You're a Kansas guy, but everybody that's tuning in cares about the Razorbacks. But you're a college basketball guy, and you are one of the guys that has been for recent years in the trenches and recruiting the national scene. So I'm glad having you back on. And today we're talking recruiting because I know you've had eyes in person on Jordan Smith Jr., as have I, but Jordan Smith Jr., that's the news. It's on the screen. National number 2 player, a 5-star, consensus 5-star, 6'2" guard out of Fairfax, Virginia, that John Paul VI high school there in VA that's typically a pipeline to Duke. Not this time, and Duke was one of the finalists. He never narrowed down his final 6 to a top 2 or 3. But it was pretty much understood this was coming down to Arkansas, Duke, maybe Georgetown being kind of the dark horse there. The other teams on that list that are noteworthy were Kentucky, Indiana, and Syracuse. But Jordan Smith Jr., John Calipari, you see this photo from when he was on campus for an official visit back in September. He actually took an official visit the same weekend as Erfan Diane, the big man who ended up in the early period committing to and signing with Houston. Houston was always the front runner there, but with Jordan Smith Jr., it was thought forever it was Duke was the front runner. And we've been feeding you source information since the end of the early period that it seemed like everything I was getting, all the source info was leading toward momentum for Arkansas until eventually, almost a week ago on Saturday, I came out and said, look, Arkansas is the leader here. If the decision's going to be made anytime soon, Arkansas will be the choice. And then just a couple of days later, I came on and reported that he was making his commitment announcement today on Friday. And sure enough, the Razorbacks, that's the decision. John Calipari with another 5-star guard. And there's a lot of things to talk about here, Sam, but I want to get just your initial reaction to this recruitment and to where this has landed for the Razorbacks and Jordan Smith Jr.
Well, first of all, this is obviously humongous. It's a humongous addition for Arkansas. Anytime you get the number 2 player in the country, that's going to be big. And we'll talk about this later. But I've been a fan of Jordan Smith for quite some time now. He's probably my favorite player in this class. You know, for a while, this recruitment, just from everything I've heard, was kind of a 3-team race with Arkansas, of course, Duke was in a very strong spot. And I think Georgetown actually was kind of in a sneaky spot
Yeah.
as well. Cooley had a really good relationship with the Smiths, went to watch him in Switzerland during the Team USA, hung out with his family a lot there. So I think Georgetown was kind of a dark horse in this recruitment. But as things kind of got close to decision time, Duke and Arkansas were kind of the two clear front runners. And I think whenever Duke grabbed Deron Rippey Jr. To play point guard for them next year, I think that's kind of when things really started shifting Arkansas's direction. John Shire, I'm sure he would have loved to have Rippey and Jordan Smith to kind of lead that backcourt, but John Calipari wins out, and as you said, another really, really talented guard. But I think Jordan is a lot different than any guard that John Calipari has ever had.
You know, player comparison I might make is Cason Wallace because Cason's a plus defender. He's strong, physically stronger than he looks. And Jordan Smith Jr. looks powerful, right? Coming out of the high school ranks. There'll be bigger bodies, taller players when he gets to college and then potentially the NBA. But when you look at those guys as they move up, you don't necessarily think this guy can hold his own physically. I think there might be a little bit of a Cason Wallace comp, but I think I think you're probably right because I think Jordan Smith Jr. brings so many qualities. I think he's the best defensive player in the country, regardless of position, regardless of class. And he's good enough offensively for me to think he's the best two-way player as well. You know, if he was just a defender, I might leave it at that, but I think he's the best two-way player. And you mentioned Switzerland and Team USA, that 19U over the summer. Anybody paying attention to that, it was, you had some college players that had already had a freshman season of college on that team, backcourt and frontcourt. You had what are now the true freshmen of the current college basketball season and in that loaded 2025 class, Mikal Brown Jr., some others. And then you had 4 players out of 2026, and the only one of those 4, and that included the number 1 ranked player, Tyron Stokes, Caleb Holt, a top 5 guy, Brandon McCoy Jr., a top 5 guy, all great players. Only one of those guys got the starting nod for every game, starting ahead of older guys, college proven guys, and that was Jordan Smith Jr. And all he did was impress me. I watched every one of those games. I didn't have a courtside seat, but I live streamed every minute of it. And I already knew what a player, what a great talent Jordan Smith Jr. was because I've seen him play in person so many times, including Memphis in the Nike EYBL session back in May when it was the first live eval period for Division One coaches. But to see that performance, but everything he touches to me says winner. This is one of those highly rated 5 stars where the offense is not ahead of the defense. Number one, the other part, Sam, and I'm going to ask you to weigh in. The other part of this is I get the impression, regardless of all the stats he acquires, he is out to win plays and build winning plays that build winning. And stats be damned. And stats are going to follow along if you're playing like that with his explosiveness, arm length, 6'9" wingspan on a 6'2" height, and strong, you know. But anytime you do the things he does, you're thinking about winning games beyond compiling stats. And maybe that's the biggest thing that impresses me the most.
You know, it's funny you say that because this is the main thing that comes to mind for me when thinking about Jordan Smith is this past Peach Jam team takeover
Yeah,
was undoubtedly probably the favorite
yeah,
to win it all. And Team Takeover didn't end up making the final bracket. There was a crazy buzzer beater from Knight Riders Elite, like a half court
yeah.
buzzer beater that ended up taking them out, and they weren't able to make it to bracket play, just barely. Kevin, I have never seen a player more devastated about losing an AAU game in my time covering. I mean, a lot of times, those kids, you'll get knocked out in a tournament like that, and the next day it's all smiles, it's whatever. There's a lot of basketball left in their career. The way Jordan Smith reacted to not making that Peach Jam final bracket, I think, is what says everything about him. He simply does not accept losing. He just doesn't, and I think that really makes him special. And you mentioned the defense. I forget exactly when this was. I forget who said it. I was actually trying to look for it
Yeah.
before hopping on this podcast, but I remember somebody saying that right now, if you put Jordan Smith in the NBA, he would be a top 10 defender in the NBA right now. And I think it's a possibility that's the case because
Yeah.
he moves unlike anybody I have seen on the defensive end. I forget the exact play. I think it was at City of Palms
Yeah.
where Jordan, runs, gets the ball out of this guy's hands. They kick it for three. He sprints to the corner and contests the shot, gets a hand up, missed shot. No, Paul the Sixth ends up
Yeah.
winning the game. It's stuff like that. And, his junior year summer, this past summer, he was ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, in every facet, but people forget he played up as a
Yeah.
junior at Peach Jam. And
Mhm.
this is with that class of Wilson, Boozer, Dybansta, all of those guys. Jordan Smith as a junior was playing up with them, and at Peach Jam his junior year, 12.9 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists, 1.5 steals. He shot 75% from the field and 66% from three to help Team Takeover reach the Peach Jam semifinals. They ended up losing to Knight Riders Elite, I believe. Who
And that team was absolutely loaded with the Boozers, with Caleb Will. I mean, that team was insane, arguably the best team ever. Look, you mentioned plays. When I got to Memphis in May, it was the day after JJ Andrews. We're going to talk about him in a little bit as part of this Arkansas class. He just committed to Calipari. JJ the following day was in Memphis with Brad Bill Elite for that live eval session. Calipari and Chin Coleman, associate head coach at Arkansas, were there entrenched to watch not only JJ their first commit off the board a day before, but through the weekend, Jordan Smith Jr. courtside for everything. And when I was when I got in on Friday, I went and found Jordan Smith Jr.'s game, Team Takeover, and I sat down. I hadn't sat down. The game tipped up, and it was one of the early possessions, and his team was on offense. A shot went up, not from him. It was missed. He battled some two bigs for the off to get an offensive rebound. They couldn't corral the ball because he wouldn't let. He was a menace. He didn't get it. They got it. And then the big that got it, he's harassing him in the backcourt. He's trying to give a handoff to a guard to come get it and clear the, get things going the other way. He gets a deflection on that pass. Then he leaves that and gets to the guard who now has the ball, disrupts his dribble up. He didn't get a clean cross. He gets over. He deflects the next pass, to initiate the offense. Then I think he dipped back down inside the paint, retreated, and made another disruption, challenged a shot, got a piece of the ball on the shot, brought down the defensive rebound, went coast to coast, and got a layup. All of that. He had at least 4, probably 5 deflections in just that end-to-end series, making life hell. I just don't see stuff like that. I am not used to stuff like that. You see great defenders.
Players in high school don't care about defense like that. But Jordan Smith, like, that's the end all be all. And I'm really curious.
It wasn't reckless either. It wasn't reckless or like, here's a kamikaze that's going to catch up to him. You're like, golly, man, you're right.
I'm curious how he got that, and instilled in him. I really am.
Well, I talk to his dad on the phone a lot. I do it all the time. And I call him coach. And his dad was a player. But anytime there's a dad of a player like that, ain't no way that dude hasn't been coaching him and helping him, because you don't just get that by birth, right? If you love the game, you're watching everything. Some of that obviously is a credit to Jordan Smith Jr., but you got the people around him too. Someone helped build a basketball player, but this dude takes that into the court really seriously, and he's got the goods to back it up, man. He's so strong. Again, a 6'9" wingspan. He's 6'2", super athletic. He's a versatile defender as well. He can guard multiple positions. On the high school level, he bullies some of the bigs around. He's not bashful at either end of the court. And he's a guy offensively where, he's putting up, all-American numbers, 20 to 5, 30, whatever it takes. He's pretty efficient guy. This 3-point shot's a work in progress. I think like when I looked at him at Team USA over the summer, playing mostly off the ball, in that, right? He was off the ball. Mikael Brown Jr., the freshman guard the previous season, I think at Washington or Washington State, or his name escapes me right now, was playing off the bench on the ball. But I think the vision, and this is what Jordan Smith Jr. told me personally on the heels of that Arkansas visit in September. He says Calipari's talking to him about playing as a lead guard and off the ball. He's going to remain a combo in that regard at Arkansas. But I kind of want to get some of your thoughts about him offensively, maybe some of your takeaways in terms of him being able to lead a team, because Darius Haycup, those are big shoes to fill offensively, not defensively, offensively. And now we're talking about that side of the ball.
That's actually where I was going to go next.
Okay.
What Jordan Smith, this is what he told me. This was at Peach Jam, I believe, this past year. He said, quote, John Calipari, he just tells me if I want to reach my goals, I should go there. He said he's going to do anything he can to help me get to the NBA or whatever I want to do. He said he's going to develop me to be a professional point guard or versatile guard. I think that was a very, very, very key aspect in this recruitment, because let's face it, the knock on Jordan Smith is his size. He's 6'2". He's 200 pounds. Don't believe he's really getting any taller. And as we know, 6'2" in the NBA, that's not exactly tall. We have a lot of guards nowadays that are, 6'6", 6'5", 6'7", all sorts of stuff like that. So I think Jordan really does see the opportunity to, okay, I can go learn from Calipari how to be a point guard. Yeah. And this season at Paul VI, it's his team. Paul VI isn't, like these prep schools that have, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that are going to play Division I basketball. Jordan Smith's kind of the guy. And I think that will help him in a sense. I mean, this year he's averaging, I think he's averaging over 20 and 4 assists a game. So, I think that will kind of really help him, mold into what he will probably be at Arkansas next year, which we can talk about later, but it's probably kind of that combo because, Acuff and Malik probably going to be gone. You got DJ coming back for his senior year probably. So really, it's Jordan and DJ right now are the two guys that are going to probably be handling the majority of the ball handling duties. So, uh, I think it's a great decision by Jordan because he has all of the defensive tools, all the athleticism, all the know-how, the want to win basketball games. I think Calipari can really help him unlock that offensive ability. And not to say that Jordan isn't skilled offensively. I mean, I think from about 15 feet and in, that pull-up of his, it's money. It's cash
Right.
pretty much every time, and he gets so much lift off of his jump shot. It's pretty remarkable how high he jumps to get that thing off. But yeah, I think it's a really good move for him just because he's going to be able to learn really how to take control of an offense and just look at John Calipari's track record.
Yeah.
That's all I need to look at.
No, that's right. And very much different, I think, than Darius Acuff Jr. I think, anybody that's
Completely.
saying, well, here's a natural replacement, you're going to get, whereas Acuff is a superior offensive player again, I look at what Jordan Smith Jr. does at both ends of the court, and so I think there's more two-way value than you get with Acuff, but I think there are a lot of question marks with but what will that really look like? How will that really function when he's in control of that offense and kind of setting things up? With Acuff, you really didn't have many question marks other than has what he's been doing up to this point going to translate? Oh, it translated, but you knew that was the strength of his game to begin with. And so I think we always bring some balance to things. Everything's great. This is the number two player. Look, Sam, I want your thoughts on this because I cover the Razorbacks and that kind of thing. I do think anytime you're a top 5 player in any given class, and some years were like last year in 2025, where it was so deep that you could say even the top 10. But I think anytime if you're in that top 5, most years, you've got a case that you're the best player in the country. And if I go back to the summer and Team USA and the fact that Jordan was in that starting lineup, it doesn't necessarily mean that the coaches thought he was better than Tyron Stokes, but they probably thought he was a better blend with others kind of a guy. And I think that's the beauty and the chameleon part of Jordan Smith Jr. He can be whatever you need to be to win. Tyron Stokes has all the bells and whistles. I'm not saying he shouldn't be the number one player, but does Jordan Smith Jr. have a case based on his temperament, based on his maturity, based on his understanding of delivering winning plays that make winning games?
Kevin, if you told me I had to pick one player from this class to start a team to build around, I'm picking Jordan Smith Jr. every single time. Because that's a guy that you can really build around. Now, is he as talented as Tyron Stokes right now? I think it's close. I would give Tyron the edge. And the thing with Tyron, he's bigger. He's six.
Yeah.
I think he's 6'7",
Yeah,
6'8", and he has a lot of traits that just scream like, man, that guy's an NBA wing. So I think the projectability with Tyron might be a little bit higher because you kind of know
right.
what Jordan Smith Jr. is right now. But like I said, if I had to start a team with anybody, it would be Jordan. And I've been on this train. You can go back and look at my
Yeah.
Twitter. For the longest time that year, 2 years ago at Peach Jam, it was Stokes and McCoy. Brandon McCoy were the top two
That's right.
names, and they were kind of flip-flopping back and
That's
forth.
right.
And Jordan was kind of down there a little bit. And I remember tweeting, like, how is this kid not the number one player in the class? Like, if anything, it's Stokes and Smith kind of on that same level. And I tweeted that 2 years ago. So Jordan's only grown since then. And man, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do at Arkansas next season. And you know, Arkansas is an offensive kind of minded team this year. The number 6 offensive rating, number 42
Yeah,
defensive rating. I think that'll flip
I do
next.
too. I've been talking about that a lot, and we're going to talk more about this now. What is a three-player class so far in a second. I do have some highlights, some recent highlight little reel. It's labeled Slam Mag. I think I want to give credit to Slam here, and for whatever reason, Sam, I can't figure out how to get the volume not to play. It may be silent as I play it here, but when it plays back later after I publish this, you're going to hear the volume, so we won't be able to really talk over it, even though as you watch it, it won't make a sound and you'll think you can. So you do what you want to do, but I'm gonna see if I've got it here. Um,
Now, this is one thing I love about Jordan. Same dunk animation every time.
there he is with that pull up, Jay. You talked about. There's a mid post back down. Squares under a nice midi. Another pull up there. Shoulder square.
Jordan. Slam. Jordan.
Is this City of Palms that he's at here?
I think that is, yeah.
Yeah, he ended up winning MVP.
That's right.
At this tournament, they won the tournament. There's a lot of really good teams there. A lot of really good teams, and yeah, I'll say this. I've kind of mentioned how Paul VI isn't this super big powerhouse with a bunch of Division I commits.
That's
the two
right.
losses that Paul VI has taken this year, double overtime to Prolific Prep, who has Caleb Holt, Davion Atkins, Bruce Branch.
That's right.
Go down the list. Lost in double overtime to that team. And then also lost in the Bass Pro title game in Springfield, Missouri, to Calvary Christian Academy, who has Caden Daughtry and kind of a plethora of 4 or 5 stars as well. Yeah. So it's taken 2 L's, and they're to 2 teams that quite frankly, if they were on a betting service, would be favored by probably 8.5 to 10.5 points. Somewhere in that range. So yeah, dude's a winner. He really is, Kevin.
Now I'm trying to remember. He played initially at Bass Pro, then he tweaked an ankle. He sat out at least one, if not, I don't know. Did he come back and play in that final game? I don't.
I'm not sure, because I was there for the first day and then end up having to come back to Kansas.
Okay, that's okay. That we can get past that, but the idea here is, again, every time I've watched him, he's just not forcing stuff on offense. He's making the right pass. He's making the right play. When it's time for him to put that cape on offense, you can play ISO through him. He just makes good decisions. It's sound stuff. Again, he's not taking I can't recall very many bad shots. I mean, all players are going to take some. No one's perfect, but he just he checks just every box. He checks every box. You go, well, he's this number 2 player in the country. Of course he does. That's not always the case. A lot of guys are ranked highly that are just, they're offensive, juggernauts, and they still don't know what defense is, or some combination of something. There's just not a lot of weaknesses to him, other than you could say, well, he's not really been a lead guard comfortably for a long time. That's still a work in progress.
He's never going to be a guy that drops 20 plus points per game on you. He's just at least at the college level, the NBA level. I don't think he'll ever be that guy.
No,
but I think he will average between 14 and 20 and guard the hell out of you all night and throw some dimes and grab some rebounds. So, man, he's good. He's really good.
He is. All right, so we looked at some highlights. We've talked about this. Anything else that comes to mind just in terms of, because you kind of talked there projecting ahead when he's in college and what that might look like. Calipari, do we need to say anything else about him in terms of figuring out a way to beat John Shire, beat Duke? That's, if there's any program that rivals in to some degree, you could throw in the conversation and okay, under Krzyzewski, now Shire, they have a real good success with one and done 5 stars, getting them drafted early. But when I start adding up all the max contracts under Calipari and the guys that go on to have huge pro careers, he separates himself even more from the field. It's not so. How does, in my opinion, he should get every player he wants, and he gets a lot of them. But where does this put Arkansas in terms of you just looking at Calipari getting this done?
Oh, I mean, when you have a resume like Calipari's, it's hard for anybody to say no.
Yeah,
I feel like, right?
yeah,
I mean, how are you going to look? I mean, it's like, do you want to play in the NBA? Okay, come join me. They're simple as that, you know? So, yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. But really, what I'm kind of curious about, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, is kind of how Calipari is just going to approach, building this roster next year. Because
yeah,
we mentioned DJ probably going to be back, and Jordan. That's your two guards, at least ball handlers. Andrews and Torre,
yeah,
I see him more as, kind of threes, more on the wing. I guess JJ can kind of play the two a little bit, but he's more of a wing, and so is Torre. And then you got, of course, Billy Richmond and Carter Knox, who play the wing, who are probably going to be back next year. Brazil and Pringle, I believe, are out of
they're
eligibility.
gone.
Ewan, he might be out of eligibility. I know he's only played like 3 years of D1, so
They're
uh,
right.
you know it's going to be really interesting to see how Cal kind of
Yeah,
pieces it together. And then I'm a big fan of Simido,
yeah,
the freshman. I thought, watching him in high school, he was really good. And Isaiah Sealy is like a 6'7" guard who I think could take a pretty big jump
yeah.
going into his sophomore year. So it's going to be interesting to see how Cal builds around those guys, because I'm trying to think, what does Arkansas really need? It looks like a big, and then maybe kind of another guard to relieve some pressure.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I want to throw it up on the screen. When we look at this recruiting haul so far, they're all 3 5 stars by some measure. You look at again, Jordan Smith Jr., the highest ranked, second ranked player in the country, according to I think 247 Sports. No lower than third when you look at the rest of them. So, uh, Shashawn J.J. Andrews, the 6'6" wing at a Little Rock Christian Academy, committed in May, signed in November. In the early period, ranked 11th according to ESPN, 12th according to 247 Sports. I did my own top 25 coming out of the spring and summer national. I had him fourth. You can go ahead and call me a homer right now. And then Abdul Torre just got bumped by rival slash on three. He just got bumped to the number 11 player in their rankings. A
He's
five
having a
star,
hell of a season.
hell of a season. He's improved. His skill level's improved. He's showing refinement in some of the things. And so he's jumped up to 11 there. And then in the composite rankings, they also have him as a 5 star rated number 22. So I just put their highest, industry rankings here. So Calipari said for a while before this bump for Torre, he said that dude's a 5 star. So I guess On Three Sports didn't want to disagree with Calipari right now. And they said, okay, you're right, he is. I think Torre earned that. It's not just on the strength of what Cal says. But you mentioned, okay, you've got two wings and a guard here. It's interesting, since Calipari came to Arkansas, he brought half of his signed 6 player class from Kentucky with him. Two wings, Carter Knox, Billy Richmond, and a guard, Boogie Fland. The last recruiting cycle for high school, he got two guards, a lead guard in Acuff, a shooting guard in Malik Thomas, a wing guard combo in Isaiah Sealy, who you mentioned out of Springdale, Arkansas. He added Samito later. He was not a preferred pull. That doesn't mean that he's not going to work out. He's redshirting. He's a 7 footer, 7'1". There's something to work with there. Some of the services actually moved him inside the top 50 of their rankings for 2025. And there are things that Arkansas, I know the staff likes about him because they've shared with me. And so we'll see how much of a project he is in year two, because remember, he's redshirting, and or, are they ready to plug him in somewhere? So you're asking questions about the roster build, but those were freshmen from last year's class. And so here we are again with two wings and a guard. Calipari has yet to land the big splash frontline guy. He's been really going shallow portal classes, two players in the first two classes. I don't count the Kentucky transfers in year one. That was retention. They just had to go in the portal formally because he took a different job. So if we go off the history here, Calipari, I think, still going to look at maybe at some reclass on the front line. Obviously, he'll be looking the portal again. But if Carter Knox does not have a pathway to the NBA draft, which we thought coming into the season was the case, he hasn't had the kind of year that tells us, yeah, that's an obvious thing now. Who knows if he stays or goes? But him, we think we've been saying for a while, we think Billy Richmond probably comes back for year three. We don't know that. Isaiah Celia promising he can play on the ball some. I don't, but he hasn't, he's been only in the wing spot since he's as a freshman. We'll see if Calipari expands his role, but let's just call him a wing from now. For now, you've got three wings that you could have all of them back potentially. And then you've got Torrey and Deshaun J.J. Andrews, who I think Andrews can also project as a 3-4 in some small ball lineups, and he might play some at the off guard. But I really think you might also see him. They'll experiment maybe a little bit as a 3-4. Torrey, I wonder if since his skills improved, could they try him? I think he's more of a wing. I've always thought that, but he has gotten
I
better.
don't think
Will he
he's a
see?
guard. I don't
I
think
don't
he's a
think he
guard at
is
all.
either. I really don't think he is either. And people say that to me, and I just kind of ignore it. They'll put it in the comments. He can play the 2-2 and also, and I just kind of, not that I'm disparaging them, I'm just not there yet to acknowledge that. But if you're log jammed at wing, it's going to be interesting to see how much retention on that wing spot will Arkansas really have, because I think front line's going to be important. I think a veteran guard, DJ certainly checks that box. Um, Jordan Smith Jr., I think, is going to be hard to take off the court. It's going to be like Acuff, but for other reasons. You're going to
He's
put him out
basically
there.
a veteran guard coming in as a freshman. So
That's right. And so, but I do think they need some depth there. The wing spot, I think they're covered. I think they're covered. But yeah, so front, I think forward, Trevor Brazil's out. Can they get somebody that can be a 4-5 combo? Be a starter at the 4 and then help at the 5. Is Malik Ewan going to be granted another year? If he is, does Calipari want him back? That kind of thing. Retention matters for Calipari, so you would think he would. Well, I've said Samito. You're saying Sameto, tomato. We're not going to call the whole thing off. We don't know. He's been redshirting. We're going to see what value there is on the front line. The portal season is going to be interesting, but with Arkansas, no matter how many names pop up, they really only drill down and take a couple every year, and it's been front line mostly. So we may see something like that again.
And I think you kind of mentioned that they haven't landed anybody recruiting wise in the front court, high school at least. I think that's just because the bigs haven't been all that great
Right.
the past couple of years. I mean, really, CNAC
Yeah.
is the only one that I can think of, like just off the top of my head. And I'm like, yeah, that dude's a bona fide NBA player.
Right.
I think nowadays. I think getting young guards and then getting experienced bigs from the portal is kind of a formula
Yeah.
a lot of people are starting to follow. And I think it's a good formula
Yeah.
to follow. So I think that's how Cal will end up approaching it. And like you said, who knows what's going to happen on the wing? Because gosh, that's a lot of dudes. JJ, Torrey, Richmond, Knox, Sealy. Yeah, that's a lot of guys out on the wing. And there's only two positions you could really you got 5 guys that you can play for 2 positions basically.
Well, you can play a lot of small ball and figure it out, but that's still too many. I mean, all those guys are good, some better than others, but I think that, I think there'll be some attrition off that wing, and it may not be what we thought coming in. Last year everybody thought the way Boogie Flan started before he got hurt, he was going to be a first round draft pick, and he put his name in the draft. And then Calipari worked on retention that he outside of him, not thinking he was going to get him back, and signed Acuff. That was going to be the replacement. He got that done early because they all thought Boogie's just going to be a one and done, and then he's got to come back. He didn't even place at Arkansas. There was no way. People say that sounds crazy. Not when you're bringing in Darius Acuff Jr., one of the top 5 to 10 players who, let's face it, man, we all said that 25 class was loaded, and it felt like where you'd never want to say can't miss, but if you're going to say that about any class, it just felt like the top 10 were shoe-ins to be exceptional, right? And so Boogie got also entered the portal when the NBA thing didn't work out. So something like that might happen with Carter Knox. I'm not saying that Calipari wouldn't try to retain him, but at the same time, there's a logjam at that wing spot. And I don't want to. We're right now. We're in happy time mode. We got to talk about these things, but just get going back to the news of the day. Big time commitment for Arkansas. Another big time commitment for John Calipari. There's nothing ho hum about it. I know people say, well, he's just doing what he does. Man, that dude gets in the trenches, and you know, I had source information that came out right after Baba Aladdin committed to Maryland, and my source was around a group of people, their associates, their close associates of John Calipari. And I'm not talking about his coaching staff, just longtime friends of his, people that know him, people he tells what's going on. And it was an intimate setting. And a source got back to me saying, yeah, Calipari said, look, I had another opportunity to raise NIL for Aladdin, and I declined. I'm pushing all my chips into the middle for the top target that's on our board. JJ Andrews was already committed. So Jordan Smith Jr., the top target on the board at that point. And so I've been talking about that for a while, but I always think of him as the hog father, the Italian thing. And that whole scene for where I got that intel was one of those sit down dinner scenes where these conversations are being had. It's exactly that sort of romanticized idea of that, of the mafioso college coach, Calipari's had that tag, and the intel was literally from one of those kind of scenes that played out. Anyway, I don't know if you find that stuff interesting or not, Sam.
Oh, that's awesome.
I tickled myself with that. Okay, real quick before we get out of here, because I know you've got to get to Ames, Iowa. You're a man about the country covering college basketball. The Field of 68. You guys are great. You're great. It's why I have you on. I also think JJ Andrews has a case. I think he's the top defender at his position. I think he is very similar to Jordan Smith Jr. in that both players will do anything to win a play before winning a stat. And by doing that, by playing that way, they get plenty of stats. But he is just a winner. Back-to-back Peach Jam championship, 16U, 17U with Bradville Elite. A program that's had a ton of great players and never won anything until J.J. Andrews helped him do it. Mika Mirnan obviously helped him 2 years ago, junior, spring, and summer. And he's won 2 state titles here in Arkansas, going for a third. He was the MVP of Peach Jam. I just think people have a hard time finding an elite skill or elite this or that, projecting way out, NBA and all that. I don't. And I think the way he plays, endless motor, plays harder than any player I've ever seen except for maybe Jordan Smith Jr. And when I'm having that conflict in my head and they're both going to be teammates, I think it's look out. I think these are the kind of guys that you can build around to build a championship team, not just a Final Four team. Even as freshmen, I think they bring those qualities. And I want to get your thoughts on that real quick because we haven't talked a lot about JJ.
Yeah, well, what I'll say about JJ is, all summer long this past summer with Brad Beal, like he was the guy from the beginning of the summer. And then as they kind of started, the season starts moving on and whatnot, I think JJ realized, well, hey, this dude, Quentin Coleman on my team, he's pretty freaking good too. Yeah. And he realized this guy, Trey Pearson, I believe is going to Murray State. He's pretty darn good with the ball in his hands. And, he kind of during Peach Jam, he took a step back. He wasn't dominating the ball as much anymore. And, Quentin and Trey and him were all kind of, feeding off of each other. And I think that says a lot about him because, it's Peach Jam. Every single coach is there watching you and whatnot. And he didn't care. He just wanted to win. He just wanted to win the games, right? He didn't mind if he was dropping 25 points per game like he was earlier in the summer. He kind of just took what the defense gave. And, the result was Bradley Beal Elite winning a championship. And, he averaged over like 20 points a game during that run still. But yeah, I think he's the ultimate teammate. Like you said, he's the ultimate competitor. I don't have anything bad to say about JJ Andrews. And yeah, that pairing with him and Jordan, and really Torre as well. I don't think there's a really many three guys who play as hard that you're going to get in a class in the entire country. So John Calipari might have outdid himself with this class. It might not be the most talented class he's ever had, but man, it might be the damn hardest playing and the most winningest class he ends up having. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, just to follow up on something you said, you're exactly right. JJ approached it with a bit of a different role until the third and fourth quarters of those games. And he went into takeover mode, and that's why he was able to get his numbers up. But a lot of that was too was getting separation and what were maybe some either competitive, some they blew out a couple of those games, but blew the opponents out. But he really helped get separation to close out games kind of in takeover mode. And so that was also good to see because the moment wasn't too big. He was just right for it and kind of outshine the rest. And the other thing I'm going to ask you before we leave real quick, I know what Duke's got. They got you mentioned Rippy. They got Cam Williams. They got Bryson Howard. They got somebody who am I leaving out? They got a fourth guy.
The center, yeah, I forget his name as well. But they got that one center.
Yeah, but I guess they're probably the number one class right now. Missouri's got a good class so far. But I think Calipari's got a case that he's got the number one class in the country. He's made a case. There's more to go. I don't think Arkansas is done here. I want to say that. I think they could add one or two more from the high school ranks, even if that takes a while longer, obviously. But I'll also say that I think defensively, it's very rare to see a class, not just one player, but a class where a coach has a head start on that end of the court with I don't care how talented they are, it's usually always offense way ahead of defense. And I think he's got a head start there with these guys in terms of well, what I bring in on day one. Yeah, they're still going to have to learn, but I've got some advantages on the defensive side just because the way these guys are built, just because their mentality and the success they've shown at that end.
Yeah, I agree. And the offense will come. If you pour out all your effort and your energy night in, night out on the defensive end, the offense has a funny way of kind of finding its way to you. So, yeah, I think Arkansas is going to be vastly improved defensively next year. And thinking about some of Cal's best teams, like
Yeah.
with Anthony Davis
Oh, yeah.
blocking all those shots and everything, like his best teams have gotten it done on that end. So, yeah, I think Arkansas, play your cards right. They have a damn good team this year. Next year has a chance to be a pretty special group. Like we said, just because of the mindset
Yeah.
of some of these guys.
100% agree. All right, before get you out of here, man, you need to go, and I talk too much. Anything else we didn't say? Anything else you want to add? Anything you want to say to Hog fan? I mean, anything. Yeah, this is a big day. It's a celebration day for Razorback fans everywhere. Anything you want to part with, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that Arkansas fans, you guys got a good one. I mean, this kid, Jordan Smith Jr., he's loyal as heck. He's been with the takeover program all throughout high school. He's been with Paul the Sixth all throughout high school. He loves the game. He just wants to win. Really, I'm kind of upset that my Kansas Jayhawks didn't make any sort of push for a guy like Jordan Smith Jr. because I think that's right up Bill Self's alley for the type of player he is. But yeah, John Calipari, did a great job recruiting him, and Arkansas fans should be really, really happy with what Smith's going to bring next year.
I agree. And we really didn't get into this, and I'm just going to part with this. And if you want to chime in, you can. Just real quick. We really didn't talk about the success that A Cup and even Malik Thomas were having and how that might have been help Jordan Smith Jr. with his decision. I think it probably did because it's one thing to see Calipari's career arc at Kentucky. Then you're going to have people recruiting against you saying, well, is he really going to be able to pull that off at Arkansas? Yeah, he has. He's been able to do that so far. And if you look to get at Flan and his injury, he had to come back to college, ends up at Florida. A Duke Thero, a second round pick, and he dealt with injuries at Arkansas. You needed, I think it helped Calipari to see what A Cup and even Malik Thomas were doing this year. I think it helped here to some degree. Calipari on his own could have gotten this done. I don't, but I'm not going to say that it not only didn't hurt that Acuff's having an All-American kind of year, potentially an SEC Player of the Year. Malik Thomas, really, really good statistically as well. They're both starters, but I do think it helped things there.
It definitely didn't hurt. Definitely didn't hurt.
All right, Sam, always great to be with you. Thank you for joining me. One of the best out there, the Field of 68. Go check out Sam on his Twitter page or his X page. Anything you can do to support this guy, because let me tell you, he's one of the best. When he got in the recruiting game, now he's covering college basketball as well. But he's really, really good, and he's one of those guys that doesn't just come on and talk about things that he doesn't know. He's actually in the trenches. He sees these players in person like I do. And so I've got put a lot of respect on you, Sam, for what you bring to the table, sir.
I appreciate you, Kevin. I'm always down to talk hoops, as you know, and I won't have it, as he commits, but I'm going to be working on a story, for the Arkansas fans on Jordan Smith,
Okay.
kind of just discussing his upbringing and what makes him such a special player. I talked to Paul VI, program director, a couple days ago over it, and have to hit some other coaches and Jordan himself. But I'm excited, and I hope you guys enjoy that whenever it comes out.
Very good. All right, Sam. Thanks again, all of you. Thank you for joining me on this special edition of HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm Kevin McPherson, your host. If you've done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. Put comments in after the fact. Hype it up. It helps us. We appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed the content. We know you're enjoying and loving this news. 2026 National number 2, 5-star, Jordan Smith Jr. This dude is a dog. That word gets thrown around too much, but if there ever was one, it's him. He is a hog. He's not just a dog, he's a hog. Until next time, be great in all your endeavors. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. We'll see you soon.